so much, Beth. We've got Beth and Marx, who's fast asleep on the bed behind us, gorgeous boy. So Beth, just tell us about Marx. He's got a lovely, lovely journey. So if we just start with the breed he is, the age he is.
Sure. So Marx is 3 months from turning 9 years old. So he will be 9 years old in June. And he is a mix, but he's half boxer. One of the parents was a boxer and the other parent was a Cocker Spaniel Labrador mix. So he's half boxer and 1/4 lab and 1/4 spaniel. And you see the traits of all those breeds in him, but the dominant ones are really the lab and boxer. And especially the boxer. He doesn't look it now, but he's a very playful, very funny boy.
He's
very energetic, very energetic.
Yeah, and what lovely characters all three of those breeds have.
Oh, I mean, affectionate to a fault, I would say. You know, incredibly affectionate. Yeah.
Sweet boy. And have you had him since he was young, or was he?
Yes, I've known him since he was 8 weeks old, and he belonged initially to some friends of mine, but very sadly for them, they had a change in circumstance, and I was their dog sitter. And about 6 months later, they came to the conclusion that it wasn't possible for him to stay with them, and I said I would take him on. So by that point, he was 9 months old, and he came to live with me. And so I've known him all his life, almost all his life, and I've had him for certainly a very long time. So I've had him 8 years now, so 8 years. And yeah, he at the time when I first got him, he was a handful, as a 9-month-old boxer puppy would be.
Little male.
So there was immediately a lot of training and things like that, but he was, in terms of food at the time, he was being fed a very well-known meat, rice and veg-based kibble. And one of the first things I noticed was his skin, and when you ran your hand along his fur, the skin would just flake up, you know, like dandruff, just really flaky, skitchy, itchy skin. And I wasn't particularly happy with that food because the salt content was quite high and the white rice content was quite high compared to brown rice. And of course, brown rice has much more nutritional bang for your buck. And so I kind of went online and spoke to some other dog owners and things like that. And I kept being recommended raw. And so I switched him to raw, and I bought myself a backup freezer. And I put him on a raw diet, and the skin issues did not change. He still had that skin issues despite people telling me that it would. And I took him to the vet, and they suggested steroids. And I really balked at this because he was so young, and I thought, if this is a lifelong condition that he's going to have, I don't want to start him on steroids at such a young age and have to keep those up, you know. So I went looking for some herbal remedies, and someone recommended to me coconut oil. So I started giving him that in addition to his raw food, and it worked a treat. But of course, the concern with that is that raw food, the meat-based food, already had a lot of fats.
I was going to say that's
additional saturated fat.
Yes, absolutely.
And he remained on this diet, and after some years, basically at the very first sign of a grey hair on him, I immediately began to panic because as boxers, with him being half boxer especially, I mean, they're such fantastic dogs, but they are an unhealthy breed, the modern boxer. You know, they are prone to so many issues. And I went online and researched the breed, and the estimate for the life expectancy of those dogs was from 7 years old to 12 years old. That's and about this time,
averaging 9, exactly.
Marx was already about 4 at about this time, and the idea to me that I might only have 3 or 4 years with him left was just, I would not accept it. I just wouldn't. And so I looked at what I was doing with him, and I thought, okay, what am I not doing that I could do? And, you know, he was getting hours of exercise every day. He was almost never on his own. He was such a happy dog. Everyone always says how happy he is. And the only thing, I was already vegan by this point. I'd been vegan a few years. And so I was aware of the research in people with how plant-based diets can extend life, you know, the reduction in serious diseases. And just this little niggling thought, can you put a dog on a plant-based diet? And would it extend their life? And not just extend their life, not just make sure that they live a long time, but they live well for a long time.
Yeah. And
I started doing research. I went online, I went into the journals on Google Scholar. I found the now infamous study on sled dogs, on the racing sled dogs.
Brilliant, in 2050.
And I joined a few Facebook groups and just didn't post anything or ask any questions, but just kind of watched and learned what the few other owners who were feeding plant-based at that time were doing.
Yeah.
And about 2 years after the thought first came to me, I finally took the plunge and I bought him some plant-based kibble. And I bought him 2 big bags of that, and I started feeding it to him and he liked it, although he likes most things.
Yes, big Labrador.
But the first thing I noticed was when I'd changed his diet, I'd stopped giving him the coconut oil because I wanted to start with a clean slate.
Yeah.
And the very first thing I noticed was that on the plant-based diets, his skin didn't have that issue. Like, his skin was just completely normal.
Wow.
So that was brilliant, and that was a real moment of maybe I'm doing the right thing here.
Yes.
And so he was on that kibble for a while, but then he really started getting very, very itchy ears, and he had an ear infection. Took him to the vet, got it treated, came back. He got another one, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And I looked at the ingredients in those kibbles, and the only thing in them that he hadn't had before, and bearing in mind nothing in his environment had changed. You know, we were walking in the same areas, same house, all that kind of thing. I thought it must be the change in diet. And the only thing in the kibbles that he had never had before as part of his diet was the wheat.
Oh, okay.
So I actually went to home cooking and I took out the wheat and just used rice, and he recovered. And then I put the wheat back in, and the reaction in him was almost instant.
Wow.
That within days he started scratching his ears again. So I thought, okay, we've established that it's wheat. And then of course, so I thought, okay, you know, the plant-based kibbles weren't as readily available at that time as they are now. There weren't as many different brands. So I went back to home cooking, and I just wanted to make sure that I was doing it right, because I was so aware of, you know, the risks, and I wanted to make sure, you know, how am I getting his vitamin A in, and, you know, things like that, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that led me to you and your website. And the very first thing that I thought when reading your website, you'd written so many articles on, you know, everything from maned wolves to methionine and the importance. And I thought, this is someone who has really done her research and knows her stuff. And I felt confident in putting my trust in you for those plant-based recipes.
But can I just say here, Beth, when I spoke to you, it was 2 years ago now, wasn't it? Or almost 18 months ago?
Yeah, about 18 months, yeah.
About 18 months.
Yeah.
You were, I've got to take that back to you, because in my view, you were extremely knowledgeable. Goodness, you have years of experience, and going into Google Scholar, for example, is just fantastic, because there you're getting the proper articles, the proper published articles. You're not just getting people's written word, following Facebook groups and just watching and learning. Brilliant way to do it with people's experience. So well done you. So yes, so carry on. It's
so I started, you had, I got in contact with you, and then shortly after that you launched the green Paws package that you launch every January.
Yes.
And I just think that's such an incredible packet. I think it's such good value. And also it's brilliant for your dog, because you get sent a variety of foods with the recipes as well, so you can really try them on what they do and don't like. It's such good value, and I hope that you continue to do it for new owners every year. But yeah, so we got the green Paws package from you, and this box of food arrived with all these recipes and things like that, and I was pulling the bags out and opening each bag to have a sniff for myself, but also Marx was drooling as I opened the bags, which had never ever happened when I was feeding his other foods. So I could tell straight away there was something in there that was really appealing to him. And yeah, and I tried him on the Greta and I tried him on the Solo Vegetal, and he did brilliantly on both foods. No itching, you know, no skin issues. And I also got more organized and better at, I started cooking the odd meal here with your recipe and the odd meal there, and over time it's come to the point where it's now so habitual for me to cook for him alongside whatever I'm doing for myself, that it's really, you know, no time out of my day at all. And he loves the homemade food. And the thing that I find great with it as well is that, you know, I stuff it into Kongs and things like that, because I try to make sure that he's not bowl fed too often, so that he's engaged when he's eating his food and it's keeping him busy and active. And what's brilliant about the homemade food and the plant-based food that I could not do when I was feeding him raw is I can stuff it in a Kong and not worry that he's taking it around the house.
Yes,
and,
absolutely. Oh gosh, you know,
worry
you're
about
so right.
bacteria that's going to be, you know, left lying around that might give us all salmonella poisoning. You know,
absolutely. And him lying on your bed behind you there with his lovely boxer jowls on your pillows, and imagining if he did have raw, all that saliva would carry all those bacteria on somewhere you're putting your cheeks. So no, there's done.
You know, so the benefits of, you know, of these diets are just, you know, there are so many that don't occur to you at the time. But I mean, also in terms of his health, now that he's been on, you know, there are sort of, I do try him on the new foods because I like to kind of give him variety, but because of his sensitivities, and he doesn't just have the wheat allergy, he has the seasonal allergies and things like that. I'm a bit more careful.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Was there also soya intolerance at one point?
I wasn't sure about soya. So I thought it was a possibility because it was in one of the early dog foods that I tried on him when he was getting these ear infections. But I've since tried soya on him in your recipe, your tofu and turmeric recipe, and he's been absolutely fine with it. No reactions whatsoever. And when I introduced the wheat back into home cooking, the reaction was so immediate, within days.
Oh, well done. Yes.
Which is great because he also absolutely loves tofu. He really loves it. So the tofu recipe, I would say, is probably his favorite. And it's also quite a sticky meaty recipe, so it's brilliant to put in Kongs and things like that, because you know, it's I think it's really satisfying for him to eat. So that's been brilliant. And yeah, I wasn't sure initially, but having tried him on it for long enough now, I'm very confident that he's fine with it. And he is so sensitive, he will react to things very, very quickly if it's ironic really, because actually in terms of his constitution, his tummy, it's quite tough, but it's just his skin and his things like that that's so sensitive, and his reactions are very, very quick when he has something that doesn't agree with him. And so yeah, no, I think with soya, he's absolutely fine. He certainly seems so. He certainly really seems to like it as well. So.
And also with the homemade recipes, because you've also got not just the supplement, powdered supplement, but you've got the addition of that omega-3 algae oil, and that makes an enormous difference to a dog's skin, because that particular algae oil I'm recommending in all the recipes also has the plant-based vitamin D3, which is so important for their immunity, which helps also against these intolerances, also helps that skin barrier.
Well, it's funny that you should mention immunity, because as you know, I use those omega-3 capsules with the D3 from vegetable. I use them for myself now as well as Marx.
Yeah, me too.
I think because they taste slightly of fish, even though they're not from fish, they taste of the sea. And I shake the bottle and he'll come running and he takes
sweet. His little treat for the day.
But we live in the southwest, and it's a very, very dog friendly area, but the consequence of there being a huge number of dogs in the area is that, you know, every illness that's going around comes to the area, unfortunately. And he picked up kennel cough last November, and he coughed for just one night, and not even through the night, but just on 2 or 3 occasions, and it's a very recognizable cough. You know, it's kennel cough. But other than that, he really seemed totally unaffected by it. Whereas my neighbors have dogs, You know, we've got a street full of dogs, and many of those dogs were really ill for, you know, consistently coughing for like a week and a week. And he's older than they are. You know, they're younger, supposedly fitter dogs, but he just, you know, it barely affected him, whereas it, you know, it hit them very hard. And I think that must be the D3, because in humans, we know that D3 has huge impacts on the body's ability to fight respiratory diseases, which is something that we should all take notice of at the moment.
Absolutely. And don't forget, the equally on top of that is you're feeding him a whole food plant-based diet. So his gut microbiome is 100% healthy, and 70% of our immunity is in the gut. So all that wonderful fiber and all those nutrient-rich prebiotics and probiotics that he's getting, and the supplement also has the pre and probiotics in them, that also, so your home cooking is really keeping him so healthy. I just commend you with everything you're doing.
I have to confess that I don't exclusively home cook, so I always have bags of kibble in the cupboard, because there are times when I need someone else to feed him, or he's going to go and stay with friends for a weekend if I go away, and things like that. And for you know, those occasions, you know, the really top quality kibbles are brilliant for that, and he really likes them. And I've got, you know, toys that I stuff them in, and he has to get them out and things like that. But
and they love that variety as well, don't they?
I think so. I mean, you know, I know from my perspective, I wouldn't want to eat the same food every day. Exactly. So, you know, I try, and I'm lucky with him that I can switch between foods quite easily, and he doesn't react. You know, so he doesn't have a tummy upset if I change food. So it keeps more variety, and it keeps it interesting for him. It's obviously, there are, you know, it can be more convenient in certain situations. I'm careful now with some of the kibbles, because some of the kibbles have very high protein contents, which is brilliant. But with him being an older dog, he doesn't need quite so much protein, and I'm aware of the threat of kidney issues if they're put under too much strain. So I try to make sure now that the kibbles I'm giving him are not higher than 26% protein.
Yeah, absolutely. Even 26% is quite high. I love to never go higher than 24% protein with the kibbles, because yes, it's just kinder on the kidneys with that. So well done. I mean, you've done all the research of the right things, because he's in his golden years now. I know it sounds horrible.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he doesn't act like it at all.
And you said
he's so fit and healthy, and you know, I've always been very diligent about making sure that he's getting 2 hours of exercise at least every day. Well, it's not always. Sometimes it's an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. Sometimes it's 2 hours in the morning and then just a very short one in the afternoon. But you know, keeping up that exercise. But he's so fit and healthy, and if we want to go up to Dartmoor for the weekend and hike for 8-10 hours, he can do it with no problem. You know, last weekend we went 16 miles.
Oh wow, you see, that's amazing. He's lean and muscular, so he can cope.
Yeah, he's as fit as he was when he was 2 years old, and he's the same weight that he was when he was 2 years old.
Well done. Well done.
And he's just, you know, he's faster than most other dogs in the dog park. We went to a fun dog fair in September, and there was an agility competition, and he won it. And he was the oldest dog there.
Oh gosh, this is
there, and he jumped this course in the fastest time. And you know, and I just think for anyone who might suggest that a plant-based diet isn't adequate for them, it's just, you know, so clearly not the case.
You star. Just for young and young owners to hear everything you're saying is just wonderful, because you're so inspiring with your message of Marx. And you sent me the most gorgeous video of him, where you can see how happy and active he is, and how lean and muscular. Yes.
He's the two most common comments that I get from other owners that he meets when we're out and about is how healthy he looks, number one, and secondly, how happy he is, that he's just always wagging his tail. He's just so happy to be around. And I mean, it's all this, you know, is admittedly from a selfish point of view, from my point of view, because he's my best friend, and I want to have him healthy and as happy as possible for as long as possible. And I really believe that the plant-based diet is the solution to that. And and we have to remember that these are animals that have evolved more or less on our own diets. So it's just and when you think about, I remember back before I switched in plant-based, thinking about the diseases that were affecting his breeds, cancer and heart disease and all these things, and we know that red meat is a cause of those diseases. We know that.
Carcinogen.
We're misguidedly feeding them to our dogs because we think that we're embracing the inner wolf, but we may as well base our own diets on what chimpanzees eat for all the relevance that it has.
You're so right.
When you think about it, actually, when you think about it this way, it's just mad. And you have boxers that are these gorgeous dogs that are not massive, they're not giant breeds, they should be living well into their teens, and they're not.
They're not. They're getting cancer.
What we're feeding them. Because of what we're feeding them, it's just so I'm just very, very grateful that I came to that realization with my first dog, and that I hope that I will be able to kind of adopt many more and transform them with this diet. But and
you will.
I feel incredibly impassioned about it now.
Yes, and so you should, because you've done absolutely everything right, and you're continuing to do everything right for him. He'll have a happy, much longer lifespan as well. So, and I love what you said, and that you echo everything of what we all feel is our dogs are just our best friends. We want them around, and we want them for as long as possible, but equally we want them to be healthy and happy, and just have that constant wag in their tails. If they're carrying extra weight, if they've got all these disabilities with arthritis, with skin issues, with gut issues, they're just not happy. So keeping them the healthiest we can is definitely the right route. So thank you. Your journey is just wonderful. I loved hearing about Marx, and he's still sleeping.
He's actually got one very sleepy eye on me as I speak.
He is.
He's not particularly interested in this conversation. He's had his long walk and his dinner. He's quite happy with his day now. That's
time to sleep. Absolutely. So thank you.
I hope that if it goes slightly towards us, people maybe trying a plant-based diet with their dogs, then I hope it does that.
It will.
And actually, my mum, my mum has a dog, and she feeds her dog raw, as so many owners do. But and she was a fierce critic really fierce critic when I turned Marx plant-based. And she occasionally does some dog sitting for me, and when we go back for visits and things like that. And her dog showed so much interest in the food that Marx was eating that she started asking questions, and to the point now where Honey my mum's dog will wolf down her food, and then she's only tiny, she's a tiny little toy poodle, and she'll go and stand right underneath Marx's legs and hope that he leaves something behind, which of course he does. But now, as a result of that, my mum is now feeding Honey half raw and half plant-based, which I never thought would have happened. Another really good friend of mine who owns Marx's best friend, his best friend is Busby, a golden retriever, and she buys your basic kind of supermarkets meat brand for him, which he's not really that keen on. Even though she rotates between brands, he's never really that interested in his food, and to get him to eat it, she has to mix in meat and fish, like real meat and fish. And with her permission, when I was staying with her last Christmas, I offered him a handful of Marx's food, just mixed in with his, and he wolfed it down straight away with no need for the meat and fish. And I just think that goes to show that, the dogs really like these foods. And, when you think that they can smell amino acids, they can smell cancer, they can even smell epilepsy.
Yes, you're so right. They can smell COVID.
They know the difference between a good food and a bad food.
Yes, you're spot on there. They're smelling the individual amino acids, so they know when a food is balanced. And obviously the supermarket meat-based brands are such of cheap quality that they have hardly the right balance of the right amino acids, whereas plants do, and they all look the same, the kibble. That's the thing. they all have the same shape and colors and sizes, but obviously it's absolutely it's their nose is smelling. So that's just so interesting what you've said there, because that was Professor Andrew Knight's studies last year. Is he published a paper, he studied 4,000 dogs and cats actually. It was to look at the palatability, comparing plant-based to raw and meat-based. And it's exact, his studies were exactly what you said, is they are as palatable, if not, well, in your instance, even more palatable than the meat-based. So, wow, gosh.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you know, any dog owner will tell you that peanut butter is a very, very high value dog treat.
Yes,
and,
I know.
You know, and it's a vegan product by its nature. You know, it's
absolutely. Yeah, and tahini. I mean, that's another one that owners don't really know about, but gosh, tahini is high value.
Yeah.
Dogs adore tahini, and it's extremely nutritious.
And the brilliant thing about a plant-based diet is that you can give them these things as part of their daily diet, as part of a balance. You know, you can mix supplement in with the, you know, and so you're giving them, you know, nutritional yeast or brewer's yeast. You know, a friend of mine, I was with her cats. Actually, we had to more or less I was visiting, and I had a bag of brewer's yeast with me, and we all very nearly lost the supplement to her cats because they smelled the brewer's yeast and they were trying to get into the packaging. You know, it's things that cats and dogs love, and you know, and that they can have that don't impact on their quality of, you know, that enhance their quality of life rather than degrade it, and give them longer lives rather than shorter lives. And it's just once you've experienced that yourself, it's just getting that message out, you know.
You know what I've absolutely loved just listening to you, and everything you've said is the only thing you've focused on completely with plant-based is Marx's health, the health of your friend's dog, the health of your mum's dog. You haven't even touched on sustainability, on the ethics, that nothing's had to die to feed him. So you're quite unique in your choices, which is just so refreshing and wonderful to hear.
I was vegan when I had Marx. And when I considered turning in plant-based, I was vegan, and it was because I'd seen the health benefits and I knew of the health benefits myself that I considered it. But that was my motivation for turning him plant-based. If I had thought that it was not the best thing for him, I would not have done it. You know, his health is it's not only everything to me because I love him and because I want to have him for as long as I can, but it's my responsibility. You know, it is my responsibility to you know, I have the control over his diet, so it's my obligation and my responsibility as an owner to make sure that he is getting the best, because he's not able to make that decision for himself. He can't go to the shops and you know, I can. I'm the person who can do that. So that's you know, it's a very small obligation in comparison to everything that I get from him and that he gives me. But it's absolutely, you know, his health is my top priority, and it's why I turned into plant-based. But you know, as an environmentalist as well, it's hugely reassuring to know that you know, I'm not killing the planet, because it's, you know, the pet food industry is 25% of animal agriculture, and you know, and I do think the sustainability argument has merit, because at the end of the day, when we start getting more frequent natural disasters as a result of climate change, it's not just us that are going to see the fallout and that are going to experience, you know, all the bad things that come with that. It's our pets as well. And not to mention, you know, what is it, something like 30 million street dogs around the world. You know, when water starts becoming scarce, they're also going to suffer. So I do think the sustainability argument is massive, because the dogs need a planet to live on as well.
Absolutely. And they need the biodiversity. We need our beautiful walks that we have. that we're so fortunate. Yeah, we need our insects and our birds, and absolutely. So, gosh, you're inspirational, Beth. You've been absolutely wonderful to talk to. I could talk to you all night. Listen to you all night because
back to you. And yeah, I want to say again that I just, when I first came across Just Be Kind, it was recommended to me by someone else online, and the depth of the research that you had gone into. It just gave me full confidence. So there really was no question left unanswered with you, and no stone left unturned. And you really do know your stuff more than anyone else, I would say, that I've heard of. So yeah, thank you for giving me that confidence in knowing that I was doing the right thing, and I'm seeing it now because I had that from you. So
no, absolute pleasure. We've come from exactly the same place, Beth. Is every single bit of research I've done has been for our own dog, just as every bit of research you've done has been for Marx. So we come from exactly the same place, just wanting the best for our little dogs. I wouldn't do any of this, either of us would we? If it wasn't
they have no idea the lengths that we go to.
The lengths we go to, absolutely. He deserves that. He deserves all of that. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.